Flaming hot off the press, Issue 3 Combat Patrol, Infernus Marines. Hello and welcome to The Lucky Roll, an eclectic channel for eclectic games. And today we're going to be looking at Issue 3 of Hachette's continuing series of Combat Patrol. Now in this issue you get 5 Infernus Marines. We have the sprue here, and I happen to have 5 painted and assembled here, so we'll have a look at them in a moment. But as for the issue itself, you get the magazine, you get some interesting sheet tokens. Now these are kind of Tyranid markers that you will use in the battle plan in the game. So as you can see, there is 4 of them, one with stats on one side and probably just kind of terrain pieces on the other that kind of go with your previous battle mat. And you have here data cards. So the data cards are interesting because you have the Barbagants, the Termagants, the Librarian and Terminator armor, and the Terminator squad. So again, you have here just basically so you can see who it is. You've got obviously the Tyranids and the Imperium here. You've got the Winged Tyranid Prime, you've got the Von Rhein's Leapers, which are the ones we got in the last issue. You have the Captain and Terminator armor, who along with the Winged Tyranid Prime were issue 1. And in this issue you have Infernus Squad. So you have nice little data sheets and cards, which are actually very useful when you're playing the game because it's something to refer to rather than kind of constantly flipping backwards and forwards through a book. You have the usual Imperium offer little booklets, so if you want to subscribe to them directly you get a lot of little extra goodies, including the Primaris Company Champion miniature. And if you want to go for the deluxe edition where you pay an extra €2 per issue, you get all these other little goodies which you can check out in our previous video. As for the issue itself, it's a nice one in terms of lore. You have here at the start the build guide, so it's just basically a 2-page build guide because you have only 5 Space Marines to make, and they're generally very simple. You have a nice little bit of lore here where it talks about the scope of the Imperium, so it is literally 1,000,000 worlds. So the Imperium is constantly expanding and retracting, so in an era of endless war there's constantly planets being lost and also planets being reconquered and recolonized. There's different types of world. You have the hive world, which is where the bulk of workers would stay. You have a forge world, which would be dedicated basically to the armaments and the industry of the Imperium. So this is where an awful lot of, say, battle titans or tanks or weapons would be made. You have the agri world, which is what feeds the entire Imperium. And you have the shrine world, which would be kind of worlds dedicated to the worship of the Emperor of Mankind, who of course is the head of the Imperium, the head of 1,000,000 worlds. There's some nice little synopsis here on Space Marines, and basically describing Space Marines at war, the type of doctrines that they do, and how powerful they are. So you have a nice little kind of show here of the different type of Space Marines you have. You have the Vanguard, which would be kind of the ambush stealth specialists. You have the Armored Support, which would be, I'd say, nearly a backbone of the Imperium, with a Land Raider here, some Predator tanks, and some Dreadnoughts. And you have different companies. Now there is 10 companies in a Space Marine chapter, and there is 100 Space Marines in a company, so it's very akin to kind of real life. This is interesting. This is a previous exclusive model from a previous Hachette collection, which you will get an exclusive model in issue 5 of this collection, but this is, I remember him because I remember painting with the nice little Gladius, that he was an exclusive model in a previous issue or previous series of Warhammer Imperium. But you have 10 companies and they come up into different types of companies. Now you would have first company, which is where the elite would be. Most likely it's the Terminators, because the Terminator armor is the most powerful armor, and they would be the veterans, the specialists, the best of the best of the best of the best. And you'd have the 10th company, which would be the Scouts. So the 10th company would be where Space Marine Ascendants would serve before being made into a full battle brother. But there would also be 8 companies in between them. You have a nice little lore story fiction here on Deep Strike. You have the Infernus Squad, which just basically kind of, again, you can roll to see what sort of background you want to give them, what type of characters they are. You have the data sheet here, and you have unit names. So another little naming convention for your Space Marines, just so you can personalize it a little bit more until you want to do it yourself. and the actual battle plan, which uses the sheets that you got here, where you basically are taking the Infernus Marines, you're putting it on the playmat that you got in issue 1, and the aim of the game is to kind of purge the infestation sites. And again, just more rules how to do it, and who wins or not at the end. And next issue, of course, will come with a series of paints: Macragge Blue, which is the base color for the Space Marines, Baraknar Burgundy, which should be a nice paint sometimes for the Tyranids, and Wraithbone, which is a nice base, and if you're following the Leviathan color scheme, would be the base color for the Tyranids, along with purple. Now, the actual sprue itself is, again, highly detailed. So as you can see, this is a relatively new it's a relatively new box. So you have here, you've got the Space Marines, you've got the Infernus weapons. So these are all pretty much flamethrowers, and they're double-handed weapons. You have, again, lots of different poses, so a lot of kind of multi-part. It's all push fit, so they do go into a kind of a singular pose, so there's not a desperate amount of extra options on it. But nevertheless, they do look good. They all do have different types of poses, and there is, of course, the usual fantastic detail on all of them. So these would be the actual Space Marines assembled. Of course, you have the 5 bases, but this would be essentially the Sergeant, and he's 4 Space Marines. Now, again, I have these pre-built from the Leviathan box set, but the Sergeant himself, again, is always very impressive. So he's got the flamer slung, he's drawing his weapon, and he's swinging forward his hand bolter to attack a Tyranid, more than likely, that has gotten too close for comfort. Now, you don't get the transfers with the Hachette collection, but they're not difficult things to get, so it's more than likely that if you pick up any other box of Space Marines, that you would get more than enough transfers in that for most of your collection. But again, it's a Space Marine Sergeant, and he's very easy to assemble and paint, and is a really cool action pose. You have here another Infernus Marine. As you can see, it's a double-handed weapon, just ready to purge in the name of the Emperor. But again, the great thing about the Space Marines is they're very easy to paint, and even if you only have 3 or 4 colors, such as gold for the Aquila and for the shoulder pads, Macragge Blue for the armor itself, and Lead Belcher. Now, I've used a paint called Rune Brass Silver, but you could also just use Lead Belcher, which would be more akin to this, a nice little silver paint that you could dry brush over the armor. It gives a nice kind of little edge highlight and metallic effect. And that's essentially it. You have 90% of your Marine done. It's sometimes nice to have a little bit of Mephiston red for the eyes, and for different parts, like the purity seals, and sometimes brown leather. So I often use Rhinox hide with a Mournfang brown to kind of give a leather effect. But again, these are great for people new to the hobby, because Space Marines are very easy to paint, and they're very easy to assemble, and they give great results. They look fantastic. So again, just another Infernus Marine holding it up. Obviously, he has no purity seal on this side. So this is what's nice about it, is that they have different little, even though it's the same thing, they all have tiny little differences, such as kind of having a different foot forward, or the purity seal in a different spot, things like that, just to get a bit of variety to the models. So again, you come with 5 Infernus Space Marines, all in different poses, and very easy to assemble. And if you want to kind of try and play the game for yourself, it has a nice little battle mat, battle plan to go with the cards that you got. So this was issue 3 of Warhammer Hachette Collection's Combat Patrol. Join us next time for issue 4. And until then, this is Sean signing off.